Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is a founder who's been on the podcast before. So this is an update in his fast-growing software business. It's Gopal Krishnamurthy of Lumel, and he's got multiple products that he's built. Originally started as a services company in the enterprise BI space, all that data warehouse, business intelligence stuff. He's lived through several lifetimes in platforms in there and has an independent company after he sold a services company. And he's made some really big bets on the future of enterprise technologies, the data layers, and some of the stuff that's coming for AI. And his company is now exploding. He's been investing his own money in building this business. It's over $10 million and growing at more than 100% a year. It's a great enterprise, big opportunity for Gopal, and it's a great interview. Great to see you, Gopal. Welcome back to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Thanks for having me here once again.
Yeah, we're both in Dallas. We haven't met yet. You were on the podcast number 32, and we've just been busy here. You called me a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, things are really heating up. Let's talk." And it's a great story for the podcast here. Your company is Lumel.com, Lumel, and you have multiple products. So you did that services to product game. Let's remind everybody here where this all started. You were doing BI stuff at big companies in oil and gas, and you started a BI services company. Just quickly, what was Visual BI, and how did that become a precursor to the Lumel software that you're building?
So, I think I mentioned it. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I've spent my 25 years all in data and BI. And then in March 2010, exactly 15 years back, I started Visual BI, where as a services company, and I had an SAP BI background. And
Which was business objects at the time, the first
exactly,
big thing,
exactly.
enterprise, business intelligence, BI software, all that. You played in that ecosystem. You were probably one of the cool guys in there.
Yeah, I think this is right after SAP acquired Business Objects. They started doing BPC, which is they acquired Outlooks of BPC. Then they introduced SAP HANA, everything hot. And because we had the expertise, we went from 0 to 10 million in less than 3 years. And
Wow.
we were one of the fastest services company just because of the focus in BI. And we were heavily focused on oil and gas industry in the first 3-4 years. Now, oil companies had money, and the executives basically wanted executive dashboards and visualizations. And they will say, okay, I will build me what we exactly need. And that's where we started getting into the software side immediately. The 2011, we immediately created a small unit within Visual BI to start building what we call as add-ons to business objects. And because you can't tell the customer, I can't do it with the object.
Yeah.
So they will say, okay, I will give you, do what
Filling in the holes in the product platform.
Yeah. And so the software division started back in 2011, and consulting business was the cash cow in the sense that was 80-90% of our business. But we were having the software business as a way to basically satisfy the customer and as a differentiator to other pure play services company.
And your add-ons appeared in the ecosystem. You probably got a lot of services business because of the products, right?
No, usually the products became the door opener for the services business because people will buy a $20,000-$30,000 product, but I would make $500,000, $1 million with the same customer doing services. It was our sales and marketing agent, so to say.
Yeah.
And first 6-7 years, we were 100% focused on SAP BI, SAP HANA, and the software business we were like the number one in the SAP Business Objects marketplace. Basically, we had more than 100 large enterprise customers using our software add-ons at the time.
Yeah.
Now, in 2016, I started noticing that the customers were getting frustrated with SAP BW, the time it takes to deliver a BI solution in the SAP ecosystem.
All that heavy enterprise data,
People started moving
all
to
that stuff.
Tableau, Click,
Okay.
Spotfire,
The
and
easier
then
stuff. Power
and
BI.
then Power BI came with a free desktop, very, very disruptive free desktop. We started slowly seeing 2016 customers moving to Power BI. But what we noticed was SAP was dominant with their data warehouse, which was their BW. And we started the shift to Snowflake and Databricks in 2017. Now,
Other data platforms, right? For
basically, their
enterprise.
data warehouse, let's say
Yeah,
data warehouse.
data
They
warehouse.
used to
Yeah.
call it data warehouse, then they said data lakehouse and all of that.
Oh, right. Data lakehouse. All
But
that.
I think I made a very bold pivot. In hindsight, it looked like you talk to 100 customers, you see the rumblings, the unhappiness about SAP and the customers. It was the same with Oracle too.
Yeah.
You see customers slowly starting to play with Snowflake and Databricks and DBT, which was the transformation tool at the time. So I think because of the access to the enterprise customers, we said if the customers are moving, we have to move our business basically. And we made a bold pivot to train and certify all the employees. So in 2017 and 2018, we hardly made any money with Snowflake or Databricks. But then 2019, we started making money on the consulting side of the things.
Yeah. A lot of SaaS founders in the last 10 years don't really remember the 90s and the 2000s and what you're describing here, which is new big platforms come in, and then that's just the first wave, and the second wave comes and you have to surf the different waves or you don't survive. It's a little different these days. The waves have kind of stayed similar for SMB, right? For Salesforce or AWS or something. There's that we haven't had to shift, and take the whole team and move it over to something else. But you did that in the services business, and you started building add-on products, I guess, for the
No,
new world. Yeah.
we pivoted the business from SAP Business Objects software business to Power BI in 2017.
Okay.
So we
Look at that.
saw
Microsoft Power
Power
BI,
BI.
their BI. Yeah. Mhm.
So we now initially we made no money. Almost for 3 years we made no
Yeah.
money. This is where most founders and entrepreneurs they give up after maybe a year or two, but they don't understand. You gotta wait for the wave to turn. It takes
Yes, there's the
even
wave.
whether it even for Snowflake and Databricks, the first 5 years was rough. They had to invest in building and maturing the platform. Now we had a catalyst. We had a catalyst in COVID. Okay. Now COVID really exploded the need for data. Okay.
Why is that? Just for in
Just
enterprise.
because not just in enterprise, the
Okay.
whole concept of ZIRP, okay, the risk money, risk capital, the Fed interest rates, that was one. So people could invest in moving to transformative projects, basically buy the new
Right. Big
software,
bets.
big bets. So you saw the surge of Snowflake and cloud data platforms. They saw the benefit. Okay, they could actually. You saw a lot of investments, marketing investments into educating the
Yeah.
market. The concept of okay, this is one very important thing about. I will touch on even AI. If you think about the dot-com era, the 90s, the late 90s,
Yeah.
everybody hyped up about internet and thing. But guess what? The internet took 20 plus years. The e-commerce is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? You needed the increase in the bandwidth. You needed the increase in the mobile device adoption. Still, nothing drove the e-commerce stuff like delivering food. The people who said I will not do order online, I will not my put credit card, even because of COVID, they started buying online.
Yeah.
So it took about 20 years. So same thing with mobile. We had mobile 20 years back, these brick phones, the form factor, everything have to become multi. So the technology follows a similar pattern. There are precursors. Basically, what
Right.
I like to call it is there are precursors, something to happen. The
Yeah.
internet bandwidth has to grow similarly, right? The
Right.
processing powers have to grow.
And you're the kind of entrepreneur, and I've been that way, which is you start to see it on the front lines. The future's already here for those frontline people, but it's not evenly distributed. And then you're making a bet to get on the next wave, to be early
Exactly.
on the next wave.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you look at
Yeah.
the Visual BI tagline, Visual BI, we have a tagline called "Look forward, think ahead." So 2010, when the branding specialist asked me, okay, what is your personality? I said, I'm a diehard sports fanatic. I like to go where the puck is, right?
Yeah.
I want to help the customers look forward and think ahead and do things more forward looking,
Yeah.
early
You're a
betting on
visionary.
technology, early bet on technologies that we think is the right, that is, you have the right team. So Snowflake really went bonkers post COVID and they went IPO. By the time we had a very, very strong elite Snowflake practice, we had a lot of customer implementation. So what happened was everybody was looking to acquire a Snowflake practice because people missed the boat. But we
Yeah.
had invested 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So
You
we
were there.
wanted,
You timed it right.
yeah. And strangely enough, the Power BI investment also started to, I would say, was logical because what Microsoft did was brilliant. In COVID, everybody wanted to buy Teams. So they
Ah,
bundled Teams and Power BI
of
and
course,
created
where Microsoft strategies give it away, right?
they created a beautiful bundle, E5 bundle. And
Mhm.
when everybody bought Teams post COVID, Power BI got included in every enterprise license in 2021. So it was very obvious that every enterprise, whether they like Tableau, they love Tableau or Click, or it doesn't matter, because it came with the Office 365 bundle, people will end up creating data models on Power BI. You can have data in Snowflake, Databricks, it doesn't matter. The uniform commonality was that the model, semantic model, was created on Power BI across. So Microsoft published a statistics in their conference last month. 95% of the Fortune 500 companies use Power BI data models. They could be a Google BigQuery customer. They could be
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazon, AWS Redshift customer, but they create. So the commonality is the Power BI model
Right.
today. Now, 360,000 organizations use Power BI. So you look at Microsoft allows our software to reach basically to the small, medium, and large enterprises, which SAP didn't do it.
So
So
let's
our
talk about
team,
your transition from services to software. So COVID came, you had this Snowflake, Power BI consulting business. You had transitioned off of the SAP platform, and you sold that business in 2021 successfully.
it was a little bit of an partly accidental and partly a little bit of what I really wanted to do. I think I lost my father. My father died in the first wave of COVID.
Oh,
Okay. And there was no vaccine. So I had to fly to India. And literally, I was in, I had to do the burial for my father and the cremation. And then I have to be literally quarantined for 2 weeks, basically. Everybody was scared to even meet you at that time. This is October 2020. The fear really hits you, right? You have a family, your entire net worth is tied to Visual BI. So that time it really said, man, I'm going to come back. If I make it back to America, I'm going to take the chips off of the table and secure the family.
oh, look at that. Okay.
So it was a little bit of that trigger and the urgency. Now, everybody, it was one of those things. Now, but what really happened was after I came back, I really saw something where it was very obvious that every customer was moving to data platforms, basically the cloud data platforms. Okay, they put in a plan. I'm either going to consolidate my data in Snowflake or Databricks.
Okay.
You can saw the pattern.
Mhm.
And then this Office 365 bundle happened. So then I was advised by my family that, you are too young to sell everything and retire. And maybe
Yeah.
you sell something and then de-risk yourself. But then my brain started saying, if everybody is moving towards the cloud data platforms, eventually the apps have to be built on top of the data platforms.
I see.
So that thing dawned on me, and the future was very, very clear because they work in kind of a 10-year time span, basically. So
Mhm.
people first invest into the data platform.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years, if you look at every single application, you replicate the data. You run the
Yeah.
ETLs, you send the data
Yeah.
to
You
the
take your
apps.
data out of Salesforce, you take your data out of SAP, you take your data out of the other
So to
marketing
all the
tools.
vertical,
Yeah. Yes.
exactly, to all your vertical SaaS application. So it really dawned on me that in the next 20 years, the apps have to come to the data platforms, basically, because nobody is gonna, if the whole goal is to consolidate the data into one data platform, why are you going to keep giving away your data and creating more data
Pushing
silos?
it
So
back and forth to all these data
exactly.
silos inside
So
SaaS. Yeah.
it was very obvious that the data silos were caused by application silos. So it doesn't matter how much you invest into the data platform, you create more silos. Every time you use a specialized SaaS software, you create more data silos.
Uh-huh.
So, and also as a strategic partner of Microsoft, I knew Microsoft was also building their own data platform. They were behind, like Snowflake and Databricks and BigQuery were really ahead on the data platform game. Microsoft really, but I knew that Microsoft was going to invest into their own, which is their Microsoft Fabric.
Right.
So we decided to stay invested because Power BI was going bonkers, saying
Well,
that
let's talk about your transition from product to services to product. You sold your services business, which was almost a $20 million business, something back in the day. I don't know how, maybe that was mostly services.
the services business was about 18 million, and we
Yeah.
were making about 2 million in the product business.
Yeah.
But
And it
that
was very
was mostly
strategic. You
on the
sold it to Atos or Atos
yes,
in
correct.
France, right?
Yeah.
Yes. But you kept the products.
I kept the products, and I spent about 2 years completely writing off the residual revenue from the products business because I wanted to build it for the native apps architecture. I didn't want to have the legacy on-prem software. So, but I only kept the knowledge and the components, even though it had a good 10 years of,
Yeah.
but we wanted to build for the native apps architecture. So
Okay.
that's where selling the services business helped us the luxury of doing it, right? So now with the capital, the risk capital, I was able to say, okay, I don't want even the residual software revenues. I will start on a clean
All that
slate.
legacy stuff. You didn't even have to, have your day job and make it pay and do this transition. It's kind of impractical, but you said, I'm done with services. I'm done with the software products on the old platforms. I'm going to go build for new. And you used your money, some of your investment
I had quite
from
a
your.
significant amount of the,
Okay. Can you
you know,
say how much it is? I mean, this is the Practical Founders podcast, and people
I
do this
would
all the
almost
time.
say more than 50% of what I got out of the exit. Let's put it.
Okay.
I exited at the top of the market, and we
Yeah.
had our services business was a very good cash flow business. So we
Yeah.
had a substantial exit, the first
Yeah.
one,
Okay. Great.
and you just put enough money to say that it's protect the family, put money into the kids
Yeah. Yeah.
trust, and I
Yeah.
did that, but pretty much everything else became no.
So this wasn't a couple $1,000,000. This is a lot
No,
more
we
than
are
that.
talking
Yeah.
tens
Yeah.
of millions. We are
Yeah.
talking tens of millions of
Okay.
dollars.
So, you're let's say a bootstrap founder, you don't have VC funding, but this is not in the practical zone. This is like a big, bold bet, right? With a big business here. So we're going to check in and see how that's going with that bet. I talked to you in 2023, episode number 34 on the podcast. That's just over 2 years ago. And you had, at the end, you said, by the end of this year, we're definitely going to be profitable at the end of 2023. But, the LLMs and generative AI started to, popped up and things started moving again and, other things like that. Did you ever get profitable with this business or did you just find another way
This is
to serve?
where this is
Yeah.
where just like every other entrepreneur, I am
I
a
get it. I just think,
incurable
yeah.
optimist.
Yeah.
Incurable
Yeah.
optimist.
Okay.
I actually we got closer.
Okay. Yeah.
But we even today we are not profitable mainly
Okay.
because our bets, the conviction was right. So we had to basically make much bigger, bolder bet, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And so to give
Like
you an
you're playing
idea,
your own venture capital investor here, right? Yeah.
exactly. And
Without
we
the whatever expectations or
exactly.
without the deep knowledge that VCs never have about your industry, you could have raised VC funding on these bets. This sounds like a big bet. It could be a very large company,
The
enterprise.
challenge is first VCs don't understand. They are more followers. Like there is a
Yeah.
maybe one person thinks, or maybe two maybe 10% of the VCs thinks AI is big. They just, every other one follows the hype. For example, right, 2 years back, if I had to raise the money, I have to sit and explain about native apps and what I was doing. And the VCs have this expectation that you have to be laser focused on things. But I was very clear, we are going to build a full stack data application. Microsoft has Office 365, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Project. We said we are going to build a full stack data application. We are going to do, suite. We will build full stack modern BI. We will build full stack enterprise performance management planning. We said we will build a full stack data apps stack, which is basically your no code data
so not
apps.
like a classic SaaS app. These modern BI and the other planning and other tools that you've been working in for 15 years on top of the data platform. Yes.
Correct. So we had to continue to, once the conviction was right, we could not stop. So we had to accelerate because we are a multi-category player. We are not a single. So our idea is more like a Palantir, more like the kind of a big vision.
A family.
Yeah, because they all have to work in tandem, basically. They all have to, because let's say you enter your budgets and forecasts, you want to immediately see on your management reports and variance report instantly.
Yeah.
Now you make a change to an employee salary, right? Or make a change. You want all your reports to be impacted immediately. So these are all fully integrated app. Completely, I call it a Lumel super app. Like it's one Lumel super app, but it is. So that's the vision. So we had to continue to invest.
Lumel.com. And then you quickly realize there's a family of products that take you to the InfoRiver website, the Power Table website, the XViz website, and
that
if
was
you start with one,
strategy
you're going
to hide it.
Yes, right.
So when I sold Visual BI, I've been very, very fortunate and lucky. Then people asked what my vision was. I said, the most used software in the world is Excel.
Yep.
And it was not designed for BI. It was not designed for planning. Right. It was not designed for data application, but people still use it because that's the most flexible software. My vision was to take the world from Excel to Lumel. Lumel means brighter future, basically. So I will build. Excel is not built for hierarchies. Excel. So we wanted to build a perfect user experience similar to Excel. So we bought a premium domain called Lumel. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I was cautioned that only when we are ready to challenge Excel, it's like people will completely disregard you. So if I used it immediately,
right, the little guy is not going to take the big guy.
So the problem is I kill the brand. So you pay so much to get a 5-letter premium brand, you will kill the brand. So it was a conscious strategy that it may take 4 years, 5 years, 10 years for us to be ready. So we had to basically create what we call, so our Power BI add-ons are called InfoRiver.
Okay,
right?
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Our data apps, so if you think about Airtable, so we wanted to create something like Power Table, basically, because it's a completely different market, right?
Right.
It's very hard to market as a bootstrap company right out of one website. Now, our data platform add-ons, our native apps are all going to be Lumel. So basically, you buy a Lumel super app, you get everything. That's what we are going to start marketing from going forward. If you want it as a BI add-on, you get the InfoRiver stuff. It's pretty simple. Okay. There was a method to the madness about the branding.
Well, without starting with, in VC land, we're going to be big and we're going to start being big. It doesn't always work. It usually doesn't or whatever. But you had this, I've got to get through the next 5 years. So I'm going to get in everybody's marketplace with different branded apps, and eventually we'll turn it into one big thing, right? That people will recognize in a family. And it's not little tools, one-off tools. All of these things work together and it's quite sophisticated. This isn't the hundreds of thousands of small and mid-sized businesses. These are enterprise businesses with BI teams and data teams and global operations and huge applications, right? That's right. You're in the high enterprise. Sophisticated.
So we have close to a little over 3,000 customers now
on your products right now.
On my suite of products.
Right. Okay.
And more than 100 countries. So they are sold through the Microsoft Power BI marketplace. Okay. Now we are most large enterprise customers use one of our product, if not all of them. I have several more than 100 large
It's a great
enterprises.
place to start is get in the door, right?
Yes.
Land and
Now,
expand. Right.
what we did in the last 4 or 5 years was used the Power BI's traction and adoption as a kind of a Trojan horse.
Yes.
It got us into all the large, big enterprise
Yeah.
customers to help us perfect our vision, basically.
Yep.
Right? So that's what we were doing for the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So we talked in 2023 and you had plenty of people working on the products in your services business. And by the time you had sold your service business was just focused on products, you already had like 100 employees,
Today we have
right?
300.
Working on it. And so now you have 300 employees in Chennai in South India. Is that right?
Chennai in India. So we went, because of COVID, we went to hire pan India. So today we hire, while Chennai has 70% or has 70% of the workforce. Today, if we get a good software developer, we hire anywhere in India.
Okay.
We still close to 85% of our employees are in India.
Okay.
But that's one of the way, as a bootstrap founder, you keep
Yes.
the capital, especially when you bet on an early adopter technology or at something. You want to
Yeah. You
keep
got to be
your
lean
burn.
and you got to stay alive long enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
now that we are taking off, we have stepped up our hiring in the US and Canada.
Okay. So let's talk about where the Lumel product family is now, after your sale and spinning it out and retooling it to your big vision, starting to really go. And where is it at right now? What's your ARR run rate? I know you're growing very fast right now.
So we are well over about 12 million. So the way I look at it, because we have really taken off,
Yeah.
we are close to a 12 million ARR from a run rate. So I look at how much is our monthly recurring that we invoice and how much of the net new and the expansion. So together,
Yeah.
close to we invoice over $1 million a month
Okay.
right now.
Right.
Now, my goal, or at least my goal is, so August 2025 would be 4 years, exactly 4 years after
Okay.
I exited.
Mhm.
So the goal is to be at 1.5 million monthly invoicing, which means we would be profitable on a monthly basis, and we would also
You're
be
declaring profitability again. We'll come
yes.
back. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the most important thing is, when I exited Visual BI business, we were monthly billing was it was an $18 million business. We were billing 1.5. So what took 10 years to build in services, we would have done it in 4 years. And
Right.
when I exited Visual BI, we had about 300 employees. We are already there, right?
Well, and it's also a little different because this is a bold bet on a new wave of the data platforms, and AI is helping move the data platforms forward here. Your apps work on the data platform, Snowflake and the rest, but that's a bold move, and you're starting like explosive growth. You're more than doubling every year right now. It's
Yes.
going.
And I think I would say we were still in the build phase
Oh,
up
sure.
until now.
Right.
Now we are expecting hockey stick growth because
Right.
in the last
Okay.
6 months, everybody is starting to realize, I don't
Yes.
know how much is it because of AI, that we have to, because the money we invested in the data platforms is not really yielding the benefits because people are using a lot of these siloed applications.
Pumping
And
data in and out to a common data warehouse to
yes, so
run
the AI
reports on.
ready data. So if you look
Okay.
at Gartner and others,
Ah,
they're starting to preach, for you to get the best outcomes with AI, you got to make sure your data platforms have to be ready for AI. So now the CTOs and the CIOs and the CDOs who bet on data platforms are starting to realize, why am I sending data in and out of this? My costs for data pipelines, in and out, egress cost, that's the biggest cost driver. Partly is because of the economy is a little bit tight right now. So people are watching
yeah.
and they're seeing.
Oh.
So that's where the investments, the bets they are making on AI is not giving the full outcome. So people are starting to say, okay, I got to really make sure all the data is in the centralized data platform for us to press the pedal on the AI. So this is like a precursor to AI.
Yeah,
AI
right.
ready data is a precursor to
So your
AI.
bet is coming to fruition about data platforms for other reasons that you didn't predict, but you can kind of be, meaning AI is a forcing function here. But what implications does that have for SaaS apps? A CRM that has its own database with APIs that pump data in and out, and all the silos of SaaS data. across all the SaaS applications. Everybody's got their own data that they run their business rules and the UI layer and everything else on. What is it? Looking into the
It's a
future
slow death.
and
It's a
looking into
slow death.
enterprise, well, like where does this go for
It's a
SaaS
slow
apps?
death. It's a very, very slow death initially. So the
For SaaS
companies,
apps or for where they put their data?
so for the SaaS apps. So let me
Okay,
explain. Let me
okay.
explain. It will be uh
Here's a perspective for everybody to
yeah.
hear from
So
the future.
it's a
Yeah.
pretty common sense, right? It's a pretty common sense, right? If I have already replicated my ERP data, transaction data into my cloud data platforms, like it could be everybody chooses one major ones. It could be Snowflake or Databricks, or I could be
Okay.
using them in
Yeah.
conjunction. Here is a good example. If you look at the SAP recently announced partnership with Databricks, where SAP was going to share their data with Databricks, the reason is the customer started pushing back. I want to consolidate all my data in Databricks. So if you look at Salesforce, they give what is called as an open access to Snowflake, basically. So all the Salesforce data, because the concept of data warehouse and data lakehouse is that I can use any number of ERPs, any number of CRMs. They all need to be in one place. That's why you build a data warehouse in the first place.
A common denominator data repository that pulls
Correct.
and pushes or whatever. But all
Correct.
that pulling and pushing, as you mentioned, is very costly, and it doesn't really help AI do things faster,
Correct. So
Okay.
today, what is happening is Salesforce is trying to sell their own AI agent, and everybody is now
Oh,
coming up with, I want to do agentic AI. But how if your
on
data
their
is
app.
spread across multiple places, are you going to buy multiple AI agents? You remember, you need to now build an AI integration. That's why the MCP server comes. This is even more expensive, even more complexity. But imagine if everything is in one data platform, the apps can run right on top of it.
Okay. Well, it sounds like I hear that that technology approach. It makes more sense, and eventually, big companies are going to require Salesforce to run off data in their data platform and not just pump data in back and forth. But is that what customer? I could see that technically, as a potential vision. But is that what your enterprise
So we are
customers are
seeing
starting to demand?
just like in 2017, we
Okay,
started seeing the slow rise of Snowflake
they're
and
pushing
Databricks.
now. They're starting to push on.
That
Okay,
wave is starting now, basically.
okay.
So I think in 5 years it will be mainstream, but I'm very, very confident.
What
But
will be mainstream? Meaning
meaning that the apps are built on top of the data platforms.
so their data natively is running on top of the
Correct.
common denominator database. So, we build our app, this is a long-standing tradition in software, right? Your app and your data is part of what you sell, and your data is the moat, right? To get the value out of it and to not switch and so forth. But when it goes into a common data platform, right, that can be integrated across the whole enterprise and so forth, does that mean their moat is reduced? And,
The SaaS's
if I
moat
don't
is
need your
ready.
SaaS app, I just have agents. And if I don't need your data store, I just have a data repository. Do I really need Salesforce the same way?
I really think we are going to start to see a lot of disruption because the data platform is the moat. That's one of the reason. If you
All
look
right.
at it, Google is betting big on BigQuery, Snowflake, Databricks, and Microsoft is betting big on Microsoft Fabric.
So
And
that data layer is becoming the new.
data is the new gold.
Yeah. Okay. New gold. Look at that. The new oil. As
Yeah,
somebody
exactly.
who came out of the oil business here, you were working in BI for the oil business here. So congratulations, right? Like, I know you're in the middle of the firefight, you're very busy and so forth, but you've been deep in this industry. You're a savvy guy. You could see you're reading the tea leaves and seeing where it's going. AI has come. You're kind of in the right place at the right time, and your business is starting to take off. Your product business is taking off, right? An $18 million, 100% growth product business, you could probably even double or even more as it picks up speed here. You've got a very valuable business already, almost like that VC-funded hockey stick growth trajectory that you talked about. So, what do you think is the next couple years with your product business now, Gopal?
I think the number one goal is that we want to be the leader in multiple categories. So
Okay,
we want to we will basically very confident we will win the EPM category,
which is what?
The enterprise planning, enterprise performance.
Okay, the planning. Okay.
We will. I don't see. That's where we have a lot of investments in the last 7-8 years, and we will absolutely win it. I don't see anybody even able to compete to our ease of use or the architecture.
Right.
And we can do price disruption because we are bootstrapped. We have the luxury. We don't.
And you don't have a huge layer of enterprise salespeople that make $1 million like all the SAP.
We just do enough.
Product driven.
Yeah, completely. 90% of our investment goes into product development and product engineering.
This podcast is sponsored by my friends at Cypress Growth Capital. At some point in your growth, you'll know you could grow faster with some outside funding, but selling a part of your company to VCs would change your whole game. And we know that's the most expensive growth capital on the planet. That's why so many practical SaaS founders I know have partnered with Cypress Growth Capital when they hit that predictable growth inflection point. For 15 years, Cypress has provided non-dilutive growth funding to bootstrap SaaS founders, including 6 successful founders I've interviewed here on this podcast. Cypress provides enough patient capital for you to invest in your growth without giving up any of your precious equity. They leverage their entrepreneurial and operational experience to provide savvy strategic guidance to help you grow efficiently and build your valuable software company faster. Go to cypressgrowthcapital.com/practical to learn more and set up a time with Cliff Centel to see if there's a fit. Now back to our program. Could you be the BI layer?
So that's where I was coming to. The Power Table. The Power Table is the data apps one, which actually we think has much bigger market than planning. So a lot of huge investment is going into Power Table because the smart sheets, the Airtable, your Monday, your Asana, your a lot of what do you call as table apps, they are ripe for disruption. No code data apps. Think about your old Microsoft Access, right?
Yep.
So this is your no code replacement for that. We think it's a much bigger market than planning. So there is a huge investment
because everybody needs apps.
Simple app, basically a simple table app, right?
Yeah.
So there is a huge investment going. We started originally investing into it as a kind of a gap in our portfolio for reporting and planning application. But as we saw the potential, we really stepped up the gas in the last 12 months, partly why we haven't broken even yet. Okay. Because you get this idea, the strong conviction, then
many people. Let's just kind of scare some practical founders out here. Your revenue is finally moving, and you had some flat revenue years or something like that before things took off and the investments paid off. But how many people do you think you have working on Power Table right now?
Probably well over 50 people. Basically.
Okay, interesting.
Well over 50 people.
And how many people on Info River products?
So basically, most of the Info River people are working on the modern BI offering. So we are also building a modern BI offering, basically. And we are also building the enterprise planning. So they basically, the enterprise planning has most of the folks because it's a much bigger.
Okay.
But I think we are trying to hire 100 more engineers in the next 6 months. Basically, we are trying to accelerate because we are trying to win all the 3 categories. Yeah. That's the vision, basically.
It's kind of like a VC funded story, but as you said, like, I see the trend. We're right here. We know we're going to be big. A VC would say, you can't be 6 things, be 1, right? We'll invest in that, go fast, and they'll follow. You're kind of leading the charge with what customers want, all the sophisticated technology, but you're building a family of products for this wave that's going on. Gopal, do you expect this to be $1 billion revenue product company someday, or do you expect to sell it to one of the big guys, like Microsoft, Google, Snowflakes, or whatever? Or what do you think could happen? You don't need to declare it here today.
We haven't really invested in marketing and sales, and I'm somewhat of a believer that you build the best product you can.
I hear that,
and that should be your primary focus. Mm-hmm. And then obviously the word of mouth will power it. But we still will have to if I have to get to $1 billion ARR, which I think we will absolutely can do. I have absolute confidence, but we need very good distribution. See,
product
is one thing, but distribution is what really do.
Well,
So,
big companies have
so we will
distribution.
be looking at a strategic. We have a strategic partnership with Microsoft
Okay.
already, but that is something that we are looking at. How can we distribute better? Basically, that's one that will give us the hockey stick growth. But we are also looking at potentially going multi-platform, because obviously if there are 4 major data platforms, obviously we have to distribute across the thing. But that's where potentially we may need a lot more funding, because you can build a great product, but if people are not aware, right? So I'm not very
No,
dogmatic.
there was, the old days, it was the first round of VC funding, 5 or 10 million, was to build the first version of the product with engineers and, servers and all that. And the second round of funding was to go to market, right? And start adding salespeople and waving your hands with marketing and the rest here. So you still haven't really, you've been very product led growth, product focus, add on focus, efficient growth. You're proving it. And, you have a $20 million business before you say we really haven't focused, we haven't focused on sales and marketing yet.
That's the main thing. Is it's a big market, Greg. It's not
Yeah,
like
it's huge.
we are trying to get to the first $10 million of revenue. We are looking at how can we get to $1 billion
Yeah.
ARR business. That's the vision. We think we will absolutely hit it based on the customer feedback, the customer traction. So it's not a question of product market fit, because the way I look at it is we worked with the largest companies in the world and
Yeah.
we perfected the product. If it works for the largest enterprises of the world and they are already your customer references, so it will work for any business. The other thing is our products works for small business, medium business. So it's completely horizontal. It works for all industries, all customers of all sizes. That's the beauty. It's a complete horizontal platform and full stack
Big
of.
TAM, big TAM. So you could go to Silicon Valley. You could raise a lot of money to say we have 3,000 customers. We have 100% year over growth. We have a family of products that work together. You could start here and start there, and eventually we'll upsell. We need to build a sales force, a marketing and distribution. Uh, Silicon Valley VCs would fund that on the way to $1 billion revenue company. Is that something you would ever consider? Having never done that before.
Again, like I said, I'm a practical founder at the end of the day.
Okay, right. Just test it.
And I want our products and vision to be successful. I'm not going to be dogmatic and say that I will be bootstrapped ever and not
Yeah.
realize the full potential of our products. The challenge with VC, so every week, there doesn't go a week where
Of course.
big VC contacts us saying that, but the fundamental challenge remains is most VCs don't even understand what we do. Okay, that's the reality. And somebody says you are a Power BI add-on, so people just simply don't get how big of the vision first. And then if they want to invest, they want you to focus on one, because they are only looking at an ROI for their product.
You've had those conversations. They say we don't
I've
like
not
your
had
family.
I've had some minimal conversations,
Okay.
but just their pitch email, just like how I am pitching to the customer. A lot of these VCs have their own kind of their demand generation people. They email about our company. I look at their email. I'm like, man, first of all, you have no understanding of what you do.
Right.
Right?
From the outside. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have to warm up to the native apps. First, the VC world, just like how they have warmed up to
It's
AI,
true.
they have to warm up to, okay, this is how the apps will be built first, right?
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
the number one challenge. I haven't really found, I think the right VC who bet first on data platforms like Snowflake or Databricks
Ah,
would be the right one. But
okay.
the problem is they are now chasing AI. That's the issue.
Well, how much AI is in your, it's on the data platforms and which will use AI for
Mhm.
agents and the rest, but do you have an AI story in there?
So it will come next. So like I said, I'm more of a commonsensical guy, right?
Okay.
I think I mentioned to you before, like if you take a look at it, technology kind of goes in waves and they follow a similar they follow a pattern and sequence.
Yes. That's right.
You think about the first wave always crashes and burns. Take a look at the
A hype
dot-com era.
cycle, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's
hype
going, yeah.
cycle, you have the dot-com era, you have the hype.
Right.
And guess
Everybody
what?
runs in.
Yeah. Now the dot-com era really started panning out 10 years later.
Uh-huh.
And then 20 years later, where it became like a big money, like post-COVID, everybody started online, e-commerce and everything. Same thing with mobile. You had a brick mobile phones, not a mass adoption. Then you really had to get the slim form factor. Then iPhone came with the multifunction devices. So then people saw, okay, I can spend money on this, like $1,000 to get a phone, because they really, it takes about 20 years for it to really mature and become mainstream. In the same way, AI right now is actually a lot faster. I'm not going to come
Yes.
here and tell you it will take 20 years. Probably it will shrink for mainstream adoption to less than 10.
Okay.
In every technology, it gets quick adoption in B2C first. Okay, at a consumer level, at a personal level. So at a personal level, you will use the chat GPT. My kids use it for the homework.
Uh-huh.
That's where it starts, right? And then it will slowly, to get to the B2B where we play B2B, it will take a good 5 years minimum for it to people to see the benefits of it. But
To be able to move. Big companies move slower, right? They're
exactly.
just
So we
complicated.
see the same pattern, but
Yep.
what for AI to give big dollar impact, right? I give you a classic example.
Yeah.
If I try to do an machine generated, AI generated budgets and forecasts today, this is what is
Uh-huh.
happening. The customer manually verifying, is this, did it really do it right? So they're actually
Right.
spending
Because of the
twice the time.
hallucinations for the
Exactly.
top,
They don't have that
10%.
trust. They don't have the trust.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So same thing. We can do variance commentary, automatic budget versus actual variance commentary. We can auto generate it. Okay. I have customers doing that
Without
using.
AI. I mean, like just
They are
through
using
yeah.
OpenAI to do it
Okay.
and all of that. But the problem is they are manually verifying, which means they are actually doubling the time they are actually doing it compared to the. So there is the little bit of the trust, the security, the ethics, all that in play. So
Yeah.
what we are actually doing is we are building a better AI ready foundation for customers as the first leg, educating them.
Right.
For us, you need a better foundation. And so we will invest. We are investing that in the right areas. So our first focus is to build the best foundation for the customer in the app layer first. And we plan to bring in a lot of automation in terms of to enable the AI. So this is one other place. Since all the hyperscalers are investing, right? If you take a look at Microsoft is investing in Copilot and OpenAI, Google is investing in their Gemini. You have your Anthropic with AWS. You don't want to be in the way of the big boys. Your capital is at the same
You
time.
draft
So
off of them. Yes. Uh-huh.
we will focus on integrating with Microsoft's Copilot, and then probably so that's where we will provide just similar to Windsurf or Cursor, that is giving a very good coding experience. Yeah, we will probably provide much superior AI agentic integration. That's where our focus is versus us trying to, what I'm saying. So that's
Yeah.
where we will provide our expertise is in giving you a superior modern architecture for data applications, but we will probably integrate with one of the hyperscalers, whatever is the platforms, the thing, like if you are investing in Snowflake, the Cortex AI integration we will provide versus us investing into our own AI.
That's great. Gopal, let me just ask you about what your life is like right now. You live in Dallas. You have a global company. You're dealing with enterprises, big vision, huge open market that you're going after. The world is changing. The waves are moving as you go here. Are you traveling the country and the world, talking to customers? Are you spending most of your time with your product team and, directing the architecture? What do you focus on right now in your business?
I work a lot of hours, okay, but I have zero stress. I have zero stress because I enjoy what I'm doing. That's the first thing. And I spend most of my time working with the product development engineers. I spend most of my time working with the customers, so I get a first-hand pulse of what we are doing right, what we are
Right.
not doing right, where are the gaps. I spend time with listening to the partners. I listening to, okay, what do we have to focus on? Why this product is so. A lot of those forward-looking continues to spend time. I don't travel as much because that is one
Okay.
thing. I conserve a lot of energy because of the remote focus, basically. So the most important thing is conserving the energy and putting time on the right thing is what
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
have been able to do really, really well. And I think it has really paid dividends. Like, for example, you know, I spend, compared to my services business days, I'm able to spend much quality time with my own family because I travel less. But I travel. If a customer asks me to come, I go. But it's more kind of selective than, okay, I have to go travel every week. Not
Right.
like the life I lived the first 10 years with Visual BI.
Yeah. I wonder if that services, travel, life, are we back to in person, there for that game, or did the COVID change,
I
the need
think
to
it
travel
is
so much?
20, it's at 20% of where we were. People
Okay.
still like, in fact, one of the things is I do intend to start travel more and meet customers. One of the things I want to change more because the power of in-person
Oh,
relationship
of
is
course. Yeah.
so I myself I miss it. So I will start, basically you will start seeing now that the products are built, I have to go meet people, educate them in person. So the
Yeah.
big part of the next 2 years is going to be actually meeting a lot of my old customers, my Visual
Yeah.
BA customers,
Yeah.
and
Get on the road.
educating them. Because one of the things is, if people try our products, they are buying. Everybody who tries. So, but we haven't done a good job of driving awareness. So that's where a lot of my own time focus will shift to.
Yeah. Well, great. It's a lot of big product bets to get ready to, then push on the business in the next few years. Do you have a senior leadership team of these product, engineering teams? And do you have a VP of sales and a
Uh,
CFO yet as your business goes from about 10 million
uh,
to 20 million? Or is it you and 300 employees in a
no, no,
Slack?
no, 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 no. So the last 1 year, that's the good beauty of running a fairly big consulting organization. It's the 15th year in the business, so you're not a, so you should know when to delegate. And so we
Yeah.
focused on
Okay.
building the leadership team last year.
Yeah. Okay.
So we brought Liron, who manages our planning
Mhm.
business. We got Jamie, who basically kind of runs our sales and operations for us, basically last year. Clint, who has been with me from Visual BI days, manages all our finance and CFO. He's basically our so he's been there.
Yeah.
I have my Ulysses, who has been there from my Visual BI days, manages a lot of our engineers and the cloud infrastructure management there. We recently got Olivier in the leadership team. He's actually focusing a lot on, how do we innovate better and how do we
Mhm.
integrate better. And I always think he's a big AI fanatic. So he's pushing me to invest into AI, and I'm slowing him down. So we have the leadership team. So it's not but we don't have a real leadership team for sales, because this is one thing I'm debating. Should we really invest in sales, or do we focus on distribution, basically? It's one of those
Right.
things that I'm grappling, because we are easily getting 5 enterprise customers a month without doing any big. It's all inbounds,
Yeah.
and we are growing. And with better distribution, we can even grow a lot faster. So I would rather save the money and put it into marketing and driving awareness, because today driving awareness is what we need.
Okay. So people can go to your website, try your products, and keep going without talking to you. Product led growth in the enterprise.
Exactly. That's the game that we want to be, because I'm a firm believer, right? I tell all my employees the same thing, right? You buy a Tesla, you buy an iPhone. Nobody says somebody sold them an iPhone, somebody sold
Yes.
them a.
Right. There we
We
go.
want to
I
build a
love it.
product that people buy. We don't
Yes.
want to be, create
Yes.
a culture where we have to sell our products.
Right. Yeah. The ones where you have to push too hard, and I'm sure SAP BI was pushed pretty hard, and they generally don't last, right? The product kind of
A
goes
lot
off
of
the
end up
cliff.
being shelfware,
Yeah.
ends up being a
Right.
shelfware. Exactly.
That's really interesting. You didn't mention partnerships on your senior leadership team, working with Microsoft, working with Snowflake, working with all these platform vendors and marketplace vendors and so forth. Is that on your plate? You're the
That's what
the main contact?
that's basically on my plate right now.
Okay.
And that has not been a big focus, but that's something that we will start focusing a lot more. Distribution is something that is big on my head, and I will be really switching gears, basically going forward.
Right. Well, on the last podcast 2 years ago, you said, I'm visionary entrepreneur. I like to be bold, but I also have patience. Bold with patience, you said, meaning you're surfing these waves, right? And you make bold bets on where the wave is going to be. And when the wave comes, which it looks like it's coming right now, right? You can go faster, right? You got to be patient to not get too far ahead of the
The
wave.
time to run. It's
Right.
the time to
Yeah,
run.
timing is important, in a software, that's half of the luck game is being there at the right time, early enough to ride the wave and early enough to get off the wave when it starts cresting and so forth. So, congratulations on getting to the other side of it. Your big vision, the way you envisioned the world going is starting to materialize and the product business is picking up. I expect big things. I could see the right kind of VC partner showing up and saying, "Let's make this a big company." I could see Microsoft, Google, and Snowflake and the rest knocking on your door and say, "We need your technology in our family." I could see, you end up as the CEO of an independent company and, it grows past 100 million. There's all those possibilities are available to you and you have your optionality there. And you're being patient with, like people on the podcast probably were to be saying, just add salespeople, hurry up and do marketing, right? But you're being patient to, you know,
You
make
lose the
sure that it's
optionality.
efficient when that happens.
If you're not patient, you lose the optionality.
Okay.
That's the key thing is
Okay.
that there is time to run, right? And you have to
Yeah.
be patient. So a lot of times what happens with especially those with services companies transitioning to products, they get one customer and then they think they have to hire a lot of salespeople. But getting one customer, so I always tell you need 3 enterprise customer references, preferably in 3 different industries. But
When for a
most
services business that builds products and wants to
correct,
transition
correct,
there. Okay.
correct, correct. So that's a very, very important point is that you get to everybody wants to transition from services to products business,
Yes.
but they get too optimistic when they get their first customer. But what they don't realize is when you get the first customer, it's probably custom built for that customer. It's not a
Right.
software, it's a
Yeah.
solution. For you to transition to a real software company, ideally, my benchmark is you need at least minimum of 10 enterprise customer references, basically, that people will say, I use this product every day. So that's when you can really say that I have a software business because so that's the main thing. A lot of people build something internally and or have small businesses using it. Now, then that can be your focus, but those don't give you big TAM, right? So it's one of those things where you have a high bar for a software company because software company, you are changing the world. You are not reacting to a customer request.
Ah.
So in a services business, you are taking it's a very reactive business. A customer asks you to do something, you
You
scope
say
it
yes.
out, you do it. You are reacting to it. You are helping them run their day-to-day business, day-to-day operation. In the software business, you are really truly transforming. What are you transforming? What are you really helping them change? So, and you want to build it for, let's say, all customers in the world, not custom built for one customer. But what happens is you get one customer and then you get extremely super excited. You want to raise money and all. That's where most things go wrong, basically.
Yeah. Well, and 10 customers, you can't have 10 big customers on your product and still be building one-off products for everybody, right? You've kind of passed that. I counsel a lot of service providers who say, I have a product. I say, well, your first goal is to get 10 real customers. They could come out of your services family, but you got to have 10 real customers that like your product, which means you might need 20 customers and half of them don't like your product or it didn't work. And then. So don't think about billion-dollar companies or raising VC. Just go get 10 happy
Build the
customers.
best product you can
Yeah.
and don't think about sales and marketing. Put all your
Ah.
energy on this. And then you need a wider validation. That's the very important thing because a lot of times you build something for one industry, but then you hire salespeople thinking you can go horizontal. That's the other mistake everybody makes.
Ah.
So
Okay, from
we were
vertical, horizontal, from very high touch, complex services sale to low touch, product led, no touch sale. It's very different. The spectrum is different. Gopal, I'll just ask you one more thing here, because on the podcast we get what is the most typical advice that you give to practical founders out there? What is the biggest lesson you've learned of services to product? It's not all sweetness and light. You're making a lot of progress here and making big bets, but you've learned a lot in this transition. You've run a big tech services business, and now you're in the enterprise software business. What other lesson can you share to all of those sophisticated service, great entrepreneurs, but they're coming out of services and getting into product? What else can you say about that, making that transition successfully?
I think it doesn't matter services business or products business. Don't start a business because you will get a big exit. That should never be. So you start a business, if you are starting a services business, either because you have the expertise and the customer trusts you, which means you can't break their trust, you got to deliver. And when you do it really very well, consistently over the years, obviously there will be profit. But a lot of times what happens is the services business people feel doesn't give them the valuation. It highly depends on, it's a people business. So it's a very linear, you have to hire more people to scale the business. So then people get this crazy idea, all these software companies raising money, and then they think they can actually get at one or two guinea pig customers. They can say they can raise a lot of money. When you raise a lot of money, becomes that suddenly they would have had a very good services business. They do this because they see the money. They don't do it because they want to really transform something, change something, how something is a process is done, or do it. That doesn't become so that is the big problem. They forget what brought them the success in the first place. Yeah, good enterprise software takes 10 years to actually build and mature. Okay? No matter no matter, look at when a lot of these companies, all the companies, if you actually look at it, when did they actually start building it? At 5 years, they actually start to really gain some traction. But to get the enterprise scale and the maturity where you can actually get a really good financial outcome, that's how long it takes. Now, you can build a consumer app in maybe 5 years because you and me can take a credit card and buy. So there is a less expectation. If it doesn't work, I can cancel. Corporate enterprise procurement works very differently. People get fired for choosing the wrong software. So it's not simply about just that, I built the product. So it needs its own kind of, it has to, it has to go through, I always say, it takes 9-10 months for a fully formed baby. It takes that long to actually do it. So you got to have that kind of a mental runway. And you don't do this for money. The software business is even more harder in the sense that why you do it, basically. Unless you are really passionate about that, you want to change something, don't even do it. Do the services business as best as you can, and you can still make a lot more money.
Right. And even add those little add-on products into your service business that make your services business better. Right.
Exactly. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong in running a very good services business. There's no reason to do the products business. But if you do it for a reason that you are very passionate about.
Right. That's very well put. And now I can recommend this podcast to services providers, especially the Indian ones, right? There's countless ones here in the States and in India that are, and I talk to them every week. The service providers say, I've got a product and I just need to sell it. And, doing that whole transition is very difficult. It's totally possible. I've been writing about it on LinkedIn this week, but it's not as obvious and easy as people think. So that's great. Congratulations on your progress with your Lumel family of software products and your no stress big bet here. It's very exciting.
Thank you. The thing is, I'm a big fan of what you are doing in educating all the possible entrepreneurs. See, all entrepreneurs are, by definition, they are eccentric. They do odd things.
Yes,
that's the characteristics of all entrepreneurs. And so there is nothing wrong. They come from odd places. They come from odd backgrounds. If you look at the successful one, and you sitting in Dallas, I'm in Dallas, you doing and educating is a great service to the whole entrepreneur community. And I'm a big fan of that.
Right. I appreciate that. Well, we're practical founder means reasonably crazy, right? You're pretty crazy, Gopal, right? You haven't raised VC, you're very rational about it and very practical about it, but you've got some big bets coming here. And every practical founder story is unique, right? The VC stories all sound the same on stage for the few success story, unicorn, billion-dollar success stories. We raised money, we were small, now we're big, all that kind of thing. But every practical founder has a very different story, different
That's
entrepreneur,
exactly
different
right.
timing, different market, different situation, different wave, all of that. So it's very exciting. And, you're building another great software company and doing it without VC funding, at least so far. And, maybe that'll happen. We'll see.
Let's see. No, Greg, and again, thanks once again for having me here today.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really looking for. A lot of times, what happens is you make the bold bets, you get it right, but you still have to continue to execute to run. You
Oh
can
my
be
gosh.
patient in building.
Uh-huh.
So I always say is that I'm not the one to celebrate or anything. So I do this for a sense of accomplishment and
Yeah.
to see it that the products are used by millions of people every day. That's the real success and
Yeah.
outcome that we are looking for.
I've built products and been part of, those product ventures that were used by millions. And I know how amazing it is when we're early and nobody thinks it'll work. And then 5 years later, you walk down the plane with the shirt and everybody high-fives you. That was Act Software
Exactly,
back in the
exactly,
90s. So
exactly.
that's the kind of thing. Like you've got your shirt on here today. All right, Gopal. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you being on the Practical Founders podcast again.
Thank you, and thank for having me here today. Thank you, Greg.
Great. Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes, and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com. Or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.